Okay, so I can see that's probably the majority of people have joined now. So thank you for joining us this afternoon to talk about LinkedIn. So we've had lots of feedback from our members and they'd really like to know more about how to master their LinkedIn profiles, not just for their businesses, but for themselves as well, and how they can use LinkedIn, which is a really powerful tool for businesses. So if you have two screens or if you've got another device, it might be worth having your LinkedIn profile open at the same time, just so you can have a look at your profile as we're going through this. If you've got questions throughout, do feel free to pop your questions into the Q&A and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. We'll try and get to as many questions as we can. But if you've got something really pointed that you want to ask that we don't get to, feel free to get in touch with us afterwards and we can see what we can do to get back to you. And just to let you know, we are also recording this session and it's going to be put up on the website afterwards. So if you do have any colleagues who you think might benefit and haven't been able to attend, do feel free to point them towards the recording. So I would like to introduce for you this afternoon Rhys from Effective Communication, who is going to be talking about mastering your LinkedIn profile. So Rhys, over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm Rhys. I'm Digital Director at Effective Communication, which is a PR and digital content agency based in Cardiff. Just to kind of kick things off with a brief introduction about myself and Effective. When I first started at Effective almost 9 years ago, the company was very much a traditional PR agency. So kind of writing content for kind of print in mind. Skip forward to today and we still tell our clients stories, but this time it's through other mediums in addition to PR. So that could be blogs, website content, social media content, newsletters, and video. Now, in terms of Effective's story, it was set up a little over 15 and a half years ago by Alistair Milburn, the former editor of the South Wales Echo. In fact, many of our senior team have a background in journalism. So, basically what that means is we're really good. We know what makes a good story and we know what the media want. Everything that we do at Effective revolves around this mantra of positioning, promoting, and protecting clients. So positioning, we work with clients, so we research, we have workshops with clients to kind of determine their market positioning, and the outputs from that, we work with them on positioning statements and messaging. And promoting is exactly what it says. We form a communications comms plan with our clients, and that will include a mix of activities depending on their audiences, some of which I've mentioned a few moments ago. And as well as being here for kind of the good bits, we're also here for the bad bits as well. So, it's unfortunate, but it does happen where, you might be the recipient of a complaint or court case, something like that. And we can advise on all aspects of that. So we can write the holding statements, and to be honest with you, you don't always have to respond to everything. So we can provide that advice. Now, I know some of you on the call this afternoon currently work with us or worked with us in the past. So this is our team. Some of them you may recognize. And this is just a selection of the many clients that we work with, including the Chamber. So for today's kind of outline, it's all about LinkedIn and kind of getting your profiles in shape. But kind of in between all of this is many years of experience of kind of knowing what works and what doesn't. So I hope you benefit from the session this afternoon. So just to kind of give you a brief intro in terms of kind of why now, why are you joining the LinkedIn session this afternoon? I don't think we kind of really need to recap on the last 12 months. But if anything has kind of shown us is that we kind of need to do kind of more listening before we kind of responding. And LinkedIn is a great tool for that. Likewise, you know, community and connections for many of us have been key to kind of our survival. And as we kind of navigate the hybrid of where we are now, which is almost anybody's guess, everything is kind of done digitally and online. And, you know, distance didn't matter before now, but it definitely does not matter anymore. And then competition, you know, with the narrowing of our kind of communication channels over the last 12 months, you know, LinkedIn has seen a surge of people kind of join in and signing up. So this is a great opportunity where if you have, you know, attended a LinkedIn session before, you know, I hope there's some kind of really kind of key moments in this afternoon which you can take away from and kind of go one better than the competition. So these are the opportunities. Some may seem fairly obvious. I think as much as we're on kind of LinkedIn kind of socially, I think many of us want to use it to generate leads, but it's also a great keeping in touch tool as well. You know, I think we're all guilty of this, but how often have you either emailed somebody in the past or had a conversation with them at an event? Maybe you've added them to LinkedIn and not quite done anything or kind of talked to them since. You know, LinkedIn is a great keeping in touch tool for that. The exposure as well that you can get from LinkedIn, the audience size, which I've got a couple of numbers for you in just a moment, will show you kind of the size of this opportunity. Now, the ones that I want to kind of want you to keep in the back of your mind this afternoon is the credibility and kind of research element of this. I'm sure you've probably done it. I've certainly done it. That before you go and meet somebody for the very first time, what do you go and do? You do a Google search. And quite often, or more often than not, the chances are you'll come across a person's LinkedIn profile. Now, they're going to do that to you. If you've done it to them, there's people out there that are searching for you. So when somebody lands on your LinkedIn profile, what do you want them to see? So, you know, really think about that this afternoon. And LinkedIn is a fantastic research tool as well, which I'll come on to. So this is just some numbers from LinkedIn, just to kind of show you the size of the opportunity that there is. Now, I've performed a couple of searches here recently, which just show you kind of a broad example of how many people in Cardiff that I could find on LinkedIn, and then how many managing directors I could find across the UK. You can narrow these down further, and I'm going to show you this afternoon how to do that. Now, for those of you that operate internationally, here's just some numbers from LinkedIn on kind of the size of the usage of LinkedIn across the world. But I'll leave that there. So I'm going to briefly go through some basics of LinkedIn, just so we're all kind of up to the same speed. I'm just conscious that there may be some people on the call this afternoon that are quite new to this. So when you sign into LinkedIn, or when you first log into LinkedIn, this is what you're going to come across. So this is kind of your home feed. So if you use other social media channels such as Facebook and Twitter, they've all got this home feed. So you should be quite familiar with this. Yours might not look as busy as mine, but the more kind of you use LinkedIn and the more you grow your connections, the more this will populate. So as you can see here, there's some kind of follower suggestions based on my network and updates that I've done. You've got your news feed in the middle, and if you have joined any groups or followed any pages, you'll get some additional information, as you can see on the left hand side. So just to again continue with the overview, everybody gets a kind of a personal kind of people profile. So you'll have one like this on the left-hand side. Groups you may not be as familiar with, but these are great kind of forums where you can engage with people on particular topics. There's lots of groups on there, so go off and have a look. But that's what they look like. Then you've got company pages and profiles, and again, if you're familiar with other social media channels, you'll be familiar with a company page. So this isn't yours. Unless you're involved in the marketing side of things, you probably won't kind of manage it, but one will exist. So, bear that in mind. And then another kind of key element of LinkedIn, which is kind of where it all kind of first started, is jobs. And there's a huge job portal on there. So in terms of your LinkedIn profile, now it may seem a little bit cheesy to kind of call this kind of your website, your kind of shop window, but this is essentially what it is. So this is your page. This is where all of your personal information sits. So you can add your work experience, kind of past education. What I do want to kind of just highlight here, though, and something to be aware of, is that anything that you like, comment, share, post about, people can trace it back and find it through your profile. So when somebody views your profile, there's like an added activity box. So just be mindful before you kind of go off liking everything. So what you don't want to be is this guy and have a half completed kind of LinkedIn profile. I mean, if you go back and you think about credibility, what would you rather? People come across this or potentially find nothing at all? I know what I would rather. If anything, this looks a bit like a spam account. So, what's that how useful is that going to be? So in terms of making your profile work harder, now I often say it goes without saying, a high quality, well lit photograph, but it's for those of you that use LinkedIn, you'll know that isn't always the case. I'm going to talk about some of these kind of key elements in a little bit more detail and the importance of them. But what I've included here are the dimensions that you need for your profile photo and cover photo, just so you can make them pixel perfect. You can obviously upload your own images, but you might find it useful to use something called Canva, canva.com. There's a free version of it as well. And there's loads of design templates in there that you can use for free and make your profile look really smart. So this is a bit like kind of tongue in cheek, but if you do really need a profile photo guide, then here's one that I did earlier. Right, so profile URL. So this bit is often overlooked by people. This is effectively your website address to your page. Now, by default, what you find is that LinkedIn might give you an address like linkedin.com/in/Rhys1259067921. Useless. Try and remember that the next time you're at a networking meeting. It's not going to work at all. So there's a couple of reasons why you want to kind of change this. Number one, you want to make it kind of like URL Google friendly. So when somebody does go and Google your name, that they're actually able to find it. So by removing loads of useless keywords or numbers, can make your page kind of more findable, if that makes sense. The other reason why we advise people to do this is so that if you do include a link to it, say from your email signature, if it's full of numbers, what are the chances of you getting one of those numbers incorrect? It's far more obvious that if you go and use this link somewhere else, you're going to know if you've got it right or wrong, especially if it's your name. Now, the headline is very an important factor. So these couple of slides focus on the kind of top bit of kind of information on your profile. Now, I've done this is because for those of you that use LinkedIn, you'll know that when, say, performing a search or seeing somebody's update, really the chances are they're only going to see this little bit of information. They'll see your profile picture, they might see your cover picture, they'll see this bit of text directly under your name, which is called a headline. So this is kind of your opportunity to kind of show off what you do. So what or why we tend to kind of recommend that you change this is because default, it'll just put in your job title. Now, depending on what your job is, it won't necessarily describe what it is that you do. So in our industry, like many others, you might be an account executive, you might be an account manager, maybe you're an account director. That doesn't tell anybody anything. So if somebody is conducting a search and you show up in the search results, they'll see your profile picture, they'll see your name, and they'll see whatever you've put in this place. Now, it's entirely up to you what you kind of put in there. I advise our clients to kind of be a little bit descriptive on kind of what it is that they do, rather than a job title, but to monitor your profile kind of stats as well. So before you go and make any of these sort of changes, it's always a good idea to look at the numbers first, benchmark, then make the changes. But I talk about stats in a couple of moments. So the next important bit of your profile is the profile summary. So treating this a bit like a website, this is your opportunity to kind of tell your story. So you find that people will quite often make the mistake of talking about their current job, and they'll just say, oh, I work at Effective, I've been here for 9 years, blah, 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 blah. But that isn't the purpose of the profile summary. So again, I recommend you use this as a way to kind of give a complete overview of your industry experience. So, how often have you worked in the industry? What is it that you actually do and help your clients achieve? If you want to talk about your job in more detail, there's space for that further down. You can also add kind of rich content media as well. So you can actually add video content and kind of PDFs and presentations to your profile. Not many people know about that, but there's a section in there that kind of prompts you to do this. It's just a good way to make your profile kind of visually kind of more stand out, but also kind of help people as well in providing them with more information. So it's worth including if you can. And the skills box as well. So this is where you can kind of display a bank of transferable skills. And you may have found this already, even if you've got a profile that you don't use, that people have kind of been recommending you for kind of these skills, or endorsing you for these skills, I should say. So you can see some here, but you have complete control over this, and you can decide what you display and what you don't display. It's almost, when you think about kind of old school kind of SEO, search engine optimization, this is almost just a keywords box to help you show up for things. But what LinkedIn recently introduced is this skills quiz. So I've tried this out. I'm not really totally sure what to make of it. But basically, based on the skills that you've got on your profile, LinkedIn has come up with a series of tests that you can do. And if you pass one of their tests, you get to add a little kind of skills badge. Again, I think this is just one of the ways, so LinkedIn is, to give you kind of a bit of a history, you would often find people who will endorse you for skills that perhaps you don't even do. Maybe you've not even worked with them. How do they know that I'm good at that. So I think this is kind of LinkedIn's way of kind of putting like a badge on it to kind of verify your skill set. But so to pick on me, we use, as a company, we use WordPress every single day. I use WordPress many hours every single day of the week. I conducted a skills test on LinkedIn for this, and it was absolutely solid. I passed, which means I can display it on my profile. If I can't remember if I decided to do it in the end, but it was pretty difficult. And LinkedIn have tried these things in the past, and they add some features, they try them out for a bit, and they take them off. Now, the other box that you kind of want to pay attention to are kind of LinkedIn recommendations. So you've used your profile to tell people how good you are. Now, recommendations are a way for other people to kind of back up what you've said and say, actually, this person, is great at what they do. So recommendations are really great to add. You can get clients to add recommendations. You can ask your colleagues, people you've worked with in the past. My top tip is that if you're looking to get recommendations from other people, give them a recommendation first, then ask them. You find they're much more willing after you've written them one. So there's an added box here as well, where you can add kind of skills and experiences that you've done. So this is just a screen grab off my profile. Now, this is quite important because, to give you an example, and again, treating your profile as a website, you may do something kind of inside of work or outside of work that's kind of not reflective in the rest of your profile. So, for example, I believe you can add voluntary work, and charitable work. So now, if somebody was looking for a digital marketer, specifically in kind of that third sector, and they were to search on LinkedIn to try and find a person in that area, if you've obviously got no mention of it on your profile, you're never going to kind of be linked to that sector. So there's an opportunity here to kind of add that additional kind of personality and experiences, which may not fit in under kind of work or education. So something to kind of bear in mind. And there's no harm when it comes to honours and awards that you include corporate awards as well. So especially if you've obviously won an award as a company because you've all worked as part of a team, there's no harm in adding it in there. So privacy is key these days. So when we run sessions like this, one of the questions we're often asked, if people know about it, is about this. So by default, when you create a LinkedIn profile and go off and connect with 200 people, 300 people, you're probably connecting with clients. So if you're quite protective over who you've connected with and the visibility of that, this is the privacy setting that you want to go and change. By default, anybody can come to your profile, click on, say, your number of connections, and view who you're connected with. So if you take your privacy seriously, and more so your client list, this is probably one of the first things I recommend you go off and do. I've included the direct link there as well, if you need it. Now, talking about extending, talking about privacy, is this. So again, if you use LinkedIn, you're probably aware of this already, but not many people are. When you go and view somebody else's profile, they can automatically see that you viewed their profile, if that makes sense. So you can actually limit that information to what they see. So if I go and visit, say, Sarah's profile, you know, by default, it'll come up and say, oh, you know, Rhys Gregory's looked at your kind of LinkedIn profile, and this is the information that, you know, Sarah would be able to see. Now, you can limit and kind of hide that information, and you can do this here. Just bear in mind that if you kind of turn this off, then it also turns off the data that you see. So you won't be able to see who's viewed your profile if you're not letting people view yours. Hope that makes sense. This set of settings here are specifically around the visibility of your profile to people that aren't on LinkedIn or kind of not signed into LinkedIn. So these are my settings. I thought I'd put up and share with you this afternoon. So I tend to share kind of headline information, you know, where I work, where I've previously worked, education, that sort of thing. But as you can see here, I hide the detail. Now, the reason why I make that information visible is so that people can actually find me. So if somebody does perform a Google search and looks up Rhys Gregory, that you'll actually be able to find me and associate me with, say, Effective, or one of my many other projects. If I hide that detail, then, you know, I'm less chance of being found. And just to kind of finish this kind of section off, I've just pulled together a bit of a checklist that I'll leave you with, so that you can kind of go off and kind of work through this yourselves. Now, posting on LinkedIn has changed quite a bit in the last 18 months. So again, you know, if you roll back the clock a few years, all you could really post on LinkedIn was just kind of text updates and links to articles. Kind of, if you skip forward to today, like other platforms, because they're all quite similar these days, you know, you can upload multiple images, you know, 10-minute videos. You can even share PDF documents, which not a lot of people kind of know. You can now see that LinkedIn kind of prompt you if you've got a document to share. But, you know, you might have an events list, you might have a brochure, maybe that you've just worked on or released, and you're quite proud of it. You can actually share that content as well. You may have actually signed up to today's event via LinkedIn. LinkedIn now do kind of events, so worth kind of checking out. You can also do live videos like other platforms, but at the moment it's kind of invite only, and you have to basically message LinkedIn and pitch a bit of a case on why you should be allowed to do live videos. Maybe to stop like your timeline being filled with these things at the moment. So when it comes to posting content, if you click on the box that you saw a moment ago, it now kind of expands, and there's a million different types of content that you can post from this box. So I'm just going to kind of take you through some of the key ones here. So for example, when you click on this box, you got all these different options. Celebrate an occasion. You can now add jobs straight from this box as well. Find experts, create polls, share a profile, or offer help. So there's lots. So if you're curious and you want to kind of celebrate an occasion, LinkedIn will kind of guide you and prompt you through creating this content. It's really simple, and it looks just like this. So, you know, traditionally you'd have to kind of come up with these content ideas yourself. LinkedIn will now kind of guide you through what those are. You can recognize team moments, so you could do it straight from that box, as you saw, kind of give kudos to employees, people that you know. But you can also do it direct off people's profiles as well by clicking the more button. And this is what it looks like. To be honest with you, it's a little bit cheesy. I think I might have used it once or twice, but you know, each to their own. If you do decide to go and use this, it's just a good prompt to remind you to do these. Here's the example that I was talking about, welcoming in Catherine to our team last year. So you can create polls, you can canvas, kind of your connections and database. This is quite good, but it can be hit or miss whether or not it works. It all comes down to the question. So I find if you ask a broad question, so it appeals to more people, and if it's something topical, something in the news, you're more likely to get a response from your network. But as you can see here, the options to run one of these are quite limited. You've got 4 options, but you can run it over 2 weeks. If you offer help or advice as well, so you can always do this on LinkedIn, but now they've kind of got all these prompts to help you do this. So if you were to select to kind of offer help, there's just a small number of options that you can tick. How this manifests itself in terms of what it looks like is that on occasion you might then get a private message from somebody, and it's all badged up saying this person's requesting help with their career and like a bit of a synopsis, and you can decide to reply to them or not. But why not be helpful if you can, but also don't be afraid to kind of ask for help if you need it too. So the options, because it's quite new, I think the options for this are quite limited, but if it is something that you kind of want to go and explore, then this is what it looks like. And LinkedIn again will guide you through filling out a couple of boxes to reach those people. Now, again, this is something brand new. I think in the last 12 months, LinkedIn have just kind of decided to kind of open the floodgates with all of these new features. But adding and sharing events within LinkedIn is quite attractive. So you haven't got to give out, say, an Eventbrite link anymore. You still can, of course, but the idea is you can promote these events much more easier within LinkedIn and without people leaving LinkedIn than you could before. So it's quite a new feature. I think it's worked quite well with some of the chamber events that I've seen recently, but it's worth taking a look at, especially if you run events. Now, making your content stand out. There's now so much content being posted on LinkedIn. It's gone are the days where you could just upload any image and the content would do well because you're using images and somebody else isn't. Now you go onto LinkedIn, everybody's using a photo or video of some sort, so it becomes a lot more difficult to kind of stand out through that content. But these are kind of our top tips for doing that. Adding personality, so not just a photo of something, but doing something with it. So as you can see here, I've kind of added a quote to an image. It wasn't just something that I took. Tagging people and businesses, so alerting people that you're talking about them. We also often find shorter posts do much better than longer posts as well on LinkedIn. And if you do want to use kind of emojis to help your content kind of stand out more visually in a newsfeed, then just think carefully about the ones you use before you off and do it. So those of you that are new to LinkedIn, when you create a post, you have the opportunity to kind of tag people and businesses in it. As I was just saying a moment ago, that just allows you that if you are talking about that person or you are talking about a company, that they get notified that you're talking about them. Because let's face it, there is so much content out there. What are the chances are they'll just come across your post without it being in their face. It also means that you've got a greater opportunity that if it's relevant to their network, they're more likely to share it as well. Now, hashtags I quite interesting. Some people just add hashtags to their posts because they think it makes their posts visually more appealing, but there's actually some meaning behind it. So for example, if you were writing a post about networking, you can share that content with other people talking about networking kind of beyond your connections. So you might only have 100 connections, but that doesn't matter. You can reach, thousands more people. And this is just an example here of that post in particular. I've tagged kind of inspirational in it. And if you click and view that hashtag, you can see it's got more than 6,500 followers. So automatically, my post can now be seen by a much greater audience just by including that. Like I said, some people just kind of put them in thinking, oh, it's just going to make my post look good. But there's kind of meaning behind it as well. Now, if you are stuck for creating kind of standout LinkedIn graphics, then I strongly recommend you going off and trying Canva. So canva.com, as I said, there's a free version of this. It's full of templates and images and stock images if you really want to use stock images, although I don't recommend it. And it just allows you to kind of be a bit more creative with your LinkedIn posts. It sizes them perfectly. You can add your branding, your colors. You can even now start to kind of animate these and turn them into video content. So worth going off and having a look. These are just some general kind of post ideas that any of us can kind of take off and go in and use. I'm not going to kind of go through these line by line. I'll share my slides and you'll have this information. Now, so if you work closely with the Chamber, you've probably met or virtually met Sharon at some point. Now, her posts always do really well. So I thought I'd kind of screen grab those and add those in. You can see them. So you can see where Sharon's included hashtags. She's tagged Focus Carmarthen Hub, so they get notified that they're talking about it. And she's also tagged 2 people in her post as well. And instead of just putting up a photo of a laptop or a desk, she's actually kind of made it kind of stand out visually a little bit more. And on the right hand side is another example where Sharon's used this to promote an event as well. So you can see she's tagged sponsors, people that are going to be involved in it. They'll get notified, they're more likely to share it, and that content will reach their audiences. A couple more examples of content that really works really well. It could be something as simple as this, where you're congratulating maybe a client or somebody or perhaps you've just come across a piece of content and you think, do you know what, this was a great piece of content. My LinkedIn connections are going to really benefit from this, just as I did, and share that too. Now, one of the questions I'm often asked is, how do you make a content piece go viral? What makes content kind of do well? So there's no magic formula, but if there was one, it would be this. So just think of this in the back of your mind. If you create a piece of content where people can kind of identify themselves within it, or somebody they know, or, this is just like my colleague, this is just like my boss, that will do automatically well. Content where you provoke kind of an emotional kind of reaction or response to it. So you make somebody happy, sad, you make them laugh, you surprise or shock them. Content does well. And then lastly, content where you kind of help people. You help people to achieve something, to get over a problem or challenge. But I thought you might just find that useful. Now, as well as kind of sharing, so you share content on LinkedIn, you can share that content beyond LinkedIn as well. So you do get some options, as you can see here, where you can choose to kind of share to connections only, share to people in specific groups or companies, or you can make them public. I often suggest to people that you make them public if you because they're essentially public anyway, aren't they? But that will allow you to share that link beyond LinkedIn. So you could share it on Twitter, you could share it in a Teams call, all of that sort of thing. And the idea being is that when people go and view that content and they click that link, if they are signed into LinkedIn, you will know that they've looked at it. You know, you'll get some kind of more intelligence back than simply sharing an article. Now, for posts where you want to kind of talk a little bit more detail, other than a short kind of almost like status update, you can actually click to add articles. So LinkedIn have kind of got this internal blogging platform, which is great, like I said, for kind of adding kind of more detailed content. And this content will sit, these articles will display on your LinkedIn profile as well. So you get a kind of a bit more space to play with here. This is just an example of what I did almost a year ago now, looking at the dates. Again, you get some really cool stats on this. Again, I'm just going to leave you with the kind of these blog ideas here because they're really generic and broad. But one of the things that I did kind of want to just kind of leave with you on here is that if you do conduct a LinkedIn poll and you get some fairly decent results, then you could turn it into an article. Perhaps you've asked for people for ideas on something and people have given you loads of comments. You could turn those comments into an article, you know, top 10, you know, ideas on how to get the most out of email marketing by, you know, experts, something like that. Stories format. I'm trying, if you were on our session back in January with the Chamber, I went through this in more detail. But now, like other platforms, there's this brand new kind of content format. So when you think of kind of images and you think of video, you know, think kind of stories. So this is content that disappears. It's all in portrait format. Engagement works slightly differently with these. If you do want to test out stories, it's really easy to do via the LinkedIn mobile app. You just kind of click the plus icon next to your profile and kind of off you go. You can, you know, you can add video content, but it's much shorter. You can take photos kind of through the app there and then, but you can also upload content that you've previously used. Here's just a brief example, not best example, but one that I did in January. And again, I'm going to leave these with you because we're not here to talk about stories in detail. But these are just simple business stories, kind of professional moments that you can share. Now, stories work a little bit differently to other forms of content on LinkedIn. The tip that I kind of want to leave you with this is about planning out a series of posts. So the more you post, the more you feature at the top of people's home feeds. So your little bubble profile icon, you know, you might post in the morning, it will disappear. But if you post again lunchtime and throughout the day, you can appear on there. And the entire idea is that you kind of you share a journey of some kind, not a picture of a chair like I've posted here, which is such a bad example to share with you. Now with LinkedIn, you get tons of data that you don't get with other social media platforms. So this is just a snapshot of the type of data that you can get. You don't get quite the same level of detail with a story post, but still you've got that there. Weekly search stats. So you remember at the start I said about kind of benchmarking kind of your position on LinkedIn. So before you go off and you change your profile photo, you pad out your profile with more detail of where you work or education, take a note of all these numbers of connections, weekly search appearances, how often people view your profile, and just set that benchmark. So when you do go off and kind of spend more time on LinkedIn, it's measurable. Your effort is measurable. So just making connection tips. Always start with the people that you know. So this is built into LinkedIn. The more information you add to your profile, the greater the number of opportunities it will show with you. So if you've added education experience, work experience, this will populate more. You can sync your address book. So, no doubt you've emailed thousands of people over the last few years. Have you connected with them on LinkedIn? You've probably not. So if you use Outlook or any number of other email services here, but we use Outlook, you can sync it up and LinkedIn will then go off and try and find those people on the platform. So if you're new to LinkedIn, you can get hundreds of connections in just a few minutes. Now, this is really cool. So if you've been using LinkedIn for a long time, you may have come across Card Munch before. So that's not operational anymore. So basically, if you go to an event and you come away with a stack of business cards, you can actually photograph them and it will automatically attempt to find those people on LinkedIn for you. Card Munch is gone, but Evernote now have kind of that licensed feature built into their system. And if you click that link there, it will give you a free trial. It'll trick you. It'll trick Evernote into thinking you've previously used Card Munch. It still works. So worth a shot. So this is brand new as well. Syncing your Outlook calendar. It's really simple to do. If you go and download the app on your phone or your iPad, you'll automatically see this prompt. But if you don't, you can click on the app, your icon in the top left corner, click on settings, and there's an option there to sync your calendar. And that will just give you prompts. So additional information. So before you go and meet with somebody, as you see here, it will say, did you know that, you got a meeting with Sarah in 15 minutes. Did you know you both went to the same school? And kind of these little icebreakers. Bit creepy, but it's there if you want to go and use it. I always tell people to go and check out this information, who's viewed your profile. So this is what I was talking about earlier, and I would advise you keep your profile kind of as open as possible. You want people to see that you viewed their profile, and in turn, you're going to want to see who's viewed your profile. Viewers also viewed, so you've spent time finding somebody to talk to. When you go and view that person's profile, if you view this box on the right hand side of their profile, it only works on desktops. By the way, it will give you similar people, similar job titles, similar companies. So it's worth keeping an eye on that one. Lots of people love this, but please be GDPR safe. So you can actually export your LinkedIn connections. So you can export all of their email addresses, all of your kind of contact history, that sort of thing. So I say to clients, so clients will come to me and say, Rhys, I want to send out a newsletter. I'll say, fantastic. Can you send us your database? They'll say they haven't got one, or they've only got 20 people. And then you say, have you got a LinkedIn profile? They've got a LinkedIn profile. They've got thousands of connections. And that is data that you can tap into. I would just say that people sign up to LinkedIn with their personal email addresses. So I would go through any data that is exported, and I wouldn't email people with like Hotmail addresses, AOL addresses, Gmail addresses. Only email work addresses under legitimate interest. Rules. Now, we always say to clients to use LinkedIn for research. So if you are in sales and you are picking up the phone and speaking to people, perform a LinkedIn search beforehand, because the information you can get is gold. So we always say, you'll never have to make a cold call again if you go off and use LinkedIn. These are just some tips here that I'll leave you with to remind people of how you've met. So we're all guilty of it. We've got lots of LinkedIn connections and we don't talk to anybody. These are, again, I don't want to say icebreakers, but these are kind of a good way into speaking with people. And then if you are going to connect with people that you don't really know, kind of honesty is the best policy that always seems to work. So just be honest, hi Gary, you don't know me, but I noticed that we're both due to attend this amazing LinkedIn workshop next week with the Chamber. I thought it would be a good opportunity to connect with you. Things like that. So just to kind of round off things, a few different tips here about joining kind of groups and extending your network. So obviously it's a good opportunity to kind of meet people and engage with people you're not connected with. That's brilliant. It's also really good for lead generation. So what you find is there's a bit of a kind of a tier system on LinkedIn. So if you're connected with somebody, they're a first degree connection. If you're not connected with somebody, but you have something in common, they're a second degree connection. And then if you haven't got anything in common, they're like third degree connection and higher. Now, the third degree connection people are much more difficult to engage with. You might not even be able to message them. So what we say is go and view their profile, look at what groups that they're members of, then join the same groups. That third degree connection becomes second degree connection, and all of a sudden you can contact them much more easily. LinkedIn has a brilliant kind of built-in search facility. So just start off with a basic search like I've done at the top, and it will give you all these amazing options. So think about who it is that you really need to speak to. Think about who the decision maker is, basically you bypass the gatekeeper. So no more talking to the office manager to speak to the managing director. You can narrow your searches down postcode level and find the people that you actually need to be speaking with instead of going around in circles. And once you've done that, you can create search alerts just like this one to be alerted every so often when new kind of people and faces come up. If you want to use LinkedIn and you find you don't have a lot of time to be kind of an active LinkedIn user, set up email alerts or download the app like this one here. So you get kind of these notifications about work anniversaries and people changing jobs. And quite quickly, you can go through that of in the morning and respond very quickly. Congratulations, happy birthday, congratulations. We'll have to catch up sometime. And all of a sudden, in the space of, a minute, you're now kind of a super LinkedIn user. And likewise, if you want to start posting on LinkedIn, but you find you don't have the time, then you can use a tool like Buffer or Hootsuite, and you can kind of schedule those content updates. So it looks like you're active, but actually you wrote all of your posts on Monday, and they're now kind of going out automatically for the rest of the week. If you are serious about using LinkedIn for sales, I recommend you go off and Google the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We do sessions on this in more detail, but go off and Google that in the first instance. So just to kind of round up in terms of key takeaways, you might be active on LinkedIn already, but kind of be a bit more strategic. Go away and think about actually who is it that you want to kind of reach and engage with, and look at the stats. Is your content working? Isn't your, it might be working, which is great. It might not be working. So go off and just be a little bit more strategic about how you use LinkedIn. And, second point here about being helpful and not afraid to ask for advice. I think we've kind of all learned this lesson in some shape or form over the last 12 months, and LinkedIn is a great platform to do it. And it seems such a cliche to say that the more you put into something, the more you get out of it. but LinkedIn is a case example. You know, you might have a great looking profile, and people may occasionally message you and come to you first, but actually with a little bit of time invested, you can really kind of grow your network. And that's me.
Thank you very much. So we've got a couple of people have asked questions. Quite a few people, hopefully I've managed to answer your questions by typing them live. But I've got one question which I have no idea on, which probably needs your input, Rhys. And it says, is it true that LinkedIn only notifies 10% of my followers for a post?
Do you know what? The truth of the matter is 10%. I've never actually heard a figure being put on it, but I do know, you know, we have all noticed that people, our reach of posts is diminishing. Now, we had a chat with LinkedIn about, or we had a chat with Facebook as well about this quite a while ago. They blame it on the fact that there's now so much content out there, they can't notify everybody every time somebody kind of posts or shares something. The only way to kind of guarantee that notification is if you tag somebody in a post, then they will definitely know that you've shared it. But yeah, I'm not aware of any sort of magic figure, but yeah, in terms of your post reach, it is kind of declining.
Lovely. I think most of the other questions are about the difference between a personal profile and a business profile. So there was somebody asking how do they set up a business profile and how that differs from a personal profile. So just briefly, what are the differences and how do people go about doing that?
Okay, so when you sign up to LinkedIn, you register for an account, you automatically get a personal profile. That's yours. That's kind of what we've been focusing on. You can create a company page. So you often find that you can, well, there's a number of ways you can do this. So when you edit your profile and you say where you currently work, and you start to kind of fill out that information, effective communication, have a look to see if a company page actually exists. You'll be surprised at how many already do. If one doesn't exist and you're 100% sure there isn't one, then all I would say is the easiest way to find it, believe it or not, is to Google, create a LinkedIn company page, and it'll take you straight to the LinkedIn page where you can create one. The main difference is it's just a separation of how you're communicating. So on your profile, when you sign up to LinkedIn, if you post something, you're obviously posting it as you. They will see this is a post by Rhys Gregory. Rhys Gregory is talking about this. With a company page, you kind of separate kind of your identity and the company's identity. So you get a page like I showed you earlier. It's got a space for your logo, a cover photo, and then you can post updates on that page as the company as opposed to you. There are some really cool features and things that you can do to engage, but I don't think I've got enough time to kind of run through them. But I'm going to share the slides anyway. So if you want to pick up with me individually afterwards, then let's do that.
Yeah, I think there's lots of people asking for the slides, so we'll definitely make sure that we share those for you. We're going to share the recording on our website as well. And if we've still got lots of people with lots of questions, you know, if there's something really specific, we'll potentially look at doing another event or maybe one of our Connect Online, so we can do a little bit of a workshop on this as well. So I'd just like to say thank you very much, Rhys, for your time this afternoon. Thank you very much to everybody who's attended. We really appreciate it. Please do get in touch with us if you've got any more questions, and we can work through those as well for you. So thanks very much and have a good afternoon, everyone.